And I confirmed the rat one night when I was out until like 10 p.m. or something, and I came home and I heard some rustling in the bathroom, and I was like, Josh, and you weren't in there? And
So you?
Mr. Marble? What were we talking about a second ago?
Arrested Development.
We were talking about Arrested Development. I remember getting that on DVD back in high school, and you said I'd let you borrow them?
Yeah, you let me borrow the DVDs for a long time. And I remember watching it in my, I had this dinosaur desktop computer, and you let me borrow all the DVDs, and I watched it through, and I think I kept every time I'd see it, I'm like, man, season 3 is really funny, and then I eventually gave it back to you, I guess, but yeah, and then they came back and did that sort of not very funny.
I was gonna say, what do you think of it?
I got a couple episodes in and just didn't get any further.
I got really excited about it when it first was announced because
Well, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you?
I mean, it looked like a dumb reunion thing, and they did a good job of making it relevant to the time that had passed in between.
Yeah.
Because remember, the first Arrested Development seasons were really relevant to the time that it came out, with it being 2003 to 2005, and we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that was what a lot of the plot was about. So then when they came out with the newer seasons in 2013, I remember thinking this is going to be hard for them to, a lot of has changed in the world, but they touched it a little bit. It just kind of felt like a little bit of a money grab. I didn't think that it was that great. Yeah.
What's funny to me is those, everybody's doing the reboot, or it's a nostalgia sort of saturated environment now, but it's, there are some ways to the de-aging thing, which I guess is pretty admirable if you're able to successfully do that. Because I did that with Sam Jackson with one of the Marvel movies, and it looked really good.
Do you mean just digitally?
Yeah, he's way older now, but they CGI'd him as if he were back in the 90s. I think it was for Captain Marvel.
I guess you kind of have to be someone like him who was in so many movies when they were that age.
Yeah.
That you can actually go back and find the footage. And they did that a little bit in, I think, Star Wars Rogue One with Carrie Fisher. They made, I guess they just had an actress who looked enough like her, and then they put Carrie Fisher's face on her.
Yeah, so
creepy.
Star Wars, one thing that's cracking me up is they came up with the Obi-Wan show, and they brought back Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen to reprise their roles, which that's cool, but all of these, I'm a pretty big Star Wars guy, admittedly. I think you already knew that, but they all of the featurettes that come out, the behind the scenes thing, there always has to be the Force theme is playing, and then it'll be some shot of a slow-mo thing of him putting on the robe, the Jedi robe, and then you just hear it's good to be back, and it's all these videos are the same. It's the same. I think there's some guy that's all right, when you do the interview, just be sure you talk about how you really like being back for this role now.
Yeah.
It's an accumulation of 20 years of, it's you're coming home, and it's that, and it's I feel like I can kind of sniff it out at this point that some of it's not as genuine as they want you to think it is.
What is your opinion of the I'm really bad with Star Wars stuff because I'm not a very good fan.
Try me, but I could.
The prequels? How do you feel about the prequels? Because I've known a lot of people love to hate on the prequels.
Yeah.
Other people are like, no, the prequels are great. So what do you think?
I think, my opinion's probably the same for most. They're, the story is really good. I think sometimes the acting was a little wooden, but it came out when, in this magical, I was a kid when those were coming out, and I guess you were too. So it was there is the nostalgia to it, I remember, I think Revenge of the Sith, was the first PG-13 movie my parents let me go see. I remember distinctly a conversation in my parents' house, in their kitchen, and my mom was like, Jim, you're not going to let Josh go to this PG-13 movie. And my dad was like, Melinda, It's Star Wars. Come on, And then I was like, yes. Dad's word. We're good for it, so we're going. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was, I mean, I see they rated it PG-13 though. I mean, you got a guy, he like gets burned alive,
So it's my opinion that dads in general don't really care about the movies their kids watch as much as the moms, which I mean, maybe it's just my experience, but like so far it's been like, even with parents that I've known who are really open with their kids, like you can watch whatever.
Yeah.
Usually the dad is the more of like the I don't really care one.
Yeah.
Because like I remember when I was a kid, my family liked. I mean, these are kind of scary, but like my family liked the Mummy movies, which were PG-13.
Was that Brendan Fraser?
Brendan Fraser,
right,
yeah. The first two were. I mean, they're scary, but it's not like a horror movie. It's like an action-packed like mummy movie. And so we liked those movies. And then in 2003, the Scorpion King movie came out.
Yes.
And Scorpion King was like the villain character at the end of the second Mummy movie. And it had The Rock in one of his first like starring roles. And I remember at the time, like so if it was 2003, I don't think I was 10 yet. I was like 9.
Yeah.
And and my mom was going out of town. She was like going out of town with a few of my siblings, and it was just going to be me, my dad, and my brother who was like 5. For whatever reason, I somehow convinced my dad was like, "You guys want to go to the movies?" And I was like, "We should go see Scorpion King." And he was like, "It's PG-13." And I was like, "It's like the third Mummy movie. We watched those. Like, my brother watched that, or I don't know if he did or not." My dad takes us to the movie, and within the first 5 minutes of the Scorpion King, a man's head gets cut off and then like rolled across like a floor as like a signal of like, you need to get out of here or something. And like, so then I loved like basically my dad, I guess, just like didn't want to get in trouble, or I don't know what happened, but he didn't say anything to my mom. And then she took the rest of my siblings to see it. And she got so mad because she was like, "You said this movie was okay?" And he was like, I guess, like I don't really stand by that, but anyway, it's just I think dads are a little bit more nonchalant. They're like, "Oh, that movie's fine," and it's like there's this awful scene. I mean, anyway.
Yeah, well, my dad was particular if there was like a lot of like drugs and sex and stuff. You know? But like if it was like, I feel like he was probably just like, how long do I have to wait before I show my son Saving Private Ryan? Because I really want to. I think by the time I did actually like was able to watch movies like that, my dad was like, all right, now check this out. This is a good one.
That's how my dad was with The Godfather. He was like I walked in one day, he's watching it on TNT, and I was like, what's this? And I started watching it with him. He's like, yeah, come on, it's The Godfather. And I'm like, I should not have been watching that movie. It's like, I mean, on TV it's not that bad, but yeah. I love movies though. That's like something I feel like you and I shared like when we were roommates and everything. We got to kind of watch movies together and talk about them a lot.
Yeah.
Aside from like superhero movies though, where do you gravitate? Like because I was into really artsy stuff when I was younger, and these days I mainly do like comedy. I love really good comedy. Yeah.
I like comedy. Admittedly, I love movies. I feel like I don't watch enough movies. Maybe that's a weird thing to say, but like, I mean, I do appreciate like just a well-made movie. I know, I don't know, I'm thinking Dune, was a good example of recently, like this is really well made. Also, like everybody's hyping on Top Gun. It was a good movie. It was a well-made movie. I mean, you at least got to give them credit for like, they were actually flying the planes around and stuff, but.
I haven't seen it. I've heard great things about it though.
It's worth at least one watch, because it kind of had that, I mean, they were borrowing from a lot of like, if you kind of like look at this is sort of beat for beat like the first Star Wars movie kind of, but it was a well-made thing at any rate. I mean, just like, I'm a sucker for a good action flick. I think like one of my favorites, who was asking me the other day, what's your favorite movie? And it's hard to pick a favorite, but I have good memories, like me and like 7 other guys watching The Fugitive with Harrison Ford.
I mean, that's a good movie.
It's such a good movie, right? Like, of course, there's like some cheesy parts, I'm sure, but like, it's just so entertaining, Like, I was like, man, there's like an entire train just like demolished, and Harrison Ford jumped out of the way in the nick of time, It's like I'm all for stuff like that, but a good comedy too, I've tried to get into like scary movies more. I think the furthest I would go is like I don't know. I at least appreciate the first Halloween movie. Like, as far as like, it was made in such like a DIY kind of way. And I like sort of the, like, I guess they call it the Jaws effect or whatever, where it's like, you don't really show the monster, but it's sort of the implication that he's around. And like, that's more scary than actually like seeing all the gore and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, you know, we could talk about movies for the whole thing, I guess. But I do love a good movie.
Well, kind of in the same vein, but since we've been talking about movies, I guess we'll make this music. But something I've been wanting to ask, kind of borrowing from one of my favorite podcasts called We Might Be Drunk. They do a thing on there where they ask every episode about recommendations. Give me a recommendation. What's like an album or an artist musically that you just like have been listening to lately that you want people to know about?
Man. That's a toughie. I'm
sorry. I mean, I should have asked this before. I should have asked you to come with some recs. That's, you know, and I get it on the spot. It's a little difficult.
Yeah. Like recently, or?
Well, I mean, it could be something like, it could be an old music that you've just recently discovered. Just like, what have you been listening to lately?
I've been listening to a lot of João Gilberto. It's like bossa nova.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. I feel like I'm kind of like nerdy about the bossa nova stuff, or like I'll start getting like excited about it, and then people will be like, "Yeah, it's great, man. You know, there's elevator music, you know." But
I love that kind of stuff.
I appreciate it. Like, the first album he did with Stan Getz, and I mean just about anything those guys did together. I think
the Girl from Ipanema. That's. I mean, it's such a classic.
I like Stan Getz a lot too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I got for my parents. I got the like last Christmas. I bought the like Stan Getz like essential collection or whatever, so we could play it at dinner and stuff. And,
nice.
On vinyl, but yeah, it's just like something about that kind of music is. Well, we went on tour. Make Sure went on tour back in May, and you know we're playing with all these like hardcore bands, and it's like super noisy every night, and just like a lot of hard rock, and it's awesome. But like when we were in the van, I'm kind of like, okay, I want a little like detox. So we would turn on like João Gilberto and just vibe out a little bit, you know, and it was very peaceful. So I don't know, like I like rockin' stuff, but I also like the quiet things too. So
well, that's something I've always kind of, when I think about, you know, I've known you for a long time. I feel like you do listen to a pretty good range of music, but like if I'm thinking back to like the early days of when I knew you, you definitely listened to a lot of ambient music. I think you made music a lot more ambient style music back then. Was that kind of like, I'm trying to think of the way to phrase my question.
Yeah.
Kind of like help me understand, I guess, the like going from back then where you were, I mean, like for example, when you did like Quality Strangers, that was pretty much all ambient, right?
Yeah. Well, Quality Strangers started out as our mutual friend Thomas. You know, me and him got to be friends in middle school, and like he had a MacBook, and while we weren't making when we weren't making just like stupid YouTube videos, we were working on just experimenting with music.
Yeah.
And but I kind of realized, you know, and that was my first time ever trying to record anything, but it was like, okay, well, if I just crank up the reverb knob or you know, hit the delay or your reverb button, everything sounds cool immediately. You know? So that was like, and I was listening to a lot of My Buddy Valentine. I think that was probably, I would have coined them as my favorite band.
I rember, I think you probably did tell me that was your favorite band back in the day.
And they're great. I stand by it. I love that band. But yeah, I mean, and back then too, I still love a lot of the same kind of music that I listened to back then, but especially like bands like Stars of the Lid, where it's just, or like even like Godspeed You Black Emperor had some ambient passages in their songs. But I like the idea of this, because ambient feels like it's sort of this like living, breathing organism, and it's sort of, you're just like observing a moment or this creation, and you're able to sort of get lost in it, and you know, lay in a hammock or something and just zone out, you know. But like there is, I don't know, there's just something really meaningful to me about that. I understand it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I liked it a lot.
I think that, well, I mean, I'm going to get back to my kind of like the direction of my question in a second, but I think that you and like Seth were some of the, and like Jackson were some of the first people I ever knew who did play. I mean, because everybody knows, you know, the different styles of music, that there is soft, slow music, there's loud, fast music, and that like, but then the kind of stuff that you guys were playing was very, or that you guys were showing me was like, oh, I didn't know that this was music. I thought this was just like something that like a hotel lobby played in the background or something. I mean, which sounds weird, but it's like, it sounds atmospheric, you know? Yeah. It doesn't really sound like what we traditionally think of as like music, at least in the West. But back to my kind of question, how do you think then that like that totally ambient sound that you kind of went with back then has kind of like, because I hear, you know, obviously elements of like, your music is very patient. I mean, when even the stuff you make these days, but talk to me about that. Like, how do you think that kind of background influences what you do now?
I mean, I think it's like, it's a lot of fun to add just weird and strange noises to my songs. And to me, that's a trademark of like a lot of my favorite albums, is like the funny noises and stuff they put in there, because it adds more like personality. But also like, I don't know, an example might be like the first track off of Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. It's a Wilco record, you know. I think it's I'm Trying to Break Your Heart, but like there's a part in that song where like maybe multiple times where it's like they're jamming and then it just sounds like it just kind of like dies for a second, you know, and then these like weird things just start like appearing. It's like the band was like playing and then something like broke and they just, you know. Yeah. And I just, that's always so fascinating to me that, you know, you can break the rules of conventional song structure and get into these like abstract moments and things like that. So I don't know. I ironically, I mean, the record I'm working on now is like going to be the most tightly arranged like pop rock thing I've ever done. I do think there's still going to be hopefully elements of, you know, sort of the strange sounds of my past work, you know, still in there. But that I think there's like a time and a place for everything. So like, I think there's a time and a place for like, you know, super buttoned up pop rock stuff, which I love, you know, and then there's also if you want to lean really hard in the other direction and listen to like, you know, Earth or something, some like drone metal band or something, or Boris, you know, but then there's like, you can put the two together, you know, you can have this marriage of there's like two extremes, and then I think that's kind of where I want to live, in that sort of middle area there, because you get I don't know, I think you just get more interesting music that way. I'm not like I said, I'm not opposed to any of those options. Like, you know, like pop. I'm not opposed to pop music. I like pop music. There's some stuff that's like, it's popular for a reason. Yeah. But I just like, I want to just like cover all the bases. That's kind of what I've always wanted to be, a versatile artist. That it's like it's always going to sound like so and so, but you know, you never quite know what you're going to get. I feel like sort of the Smashing Pumpkins were that way. Maybe like The Cure a little bit, you know, stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's actually a good lead-in, I think, to something else I wanted to talk about, and we can touch back into this a bit over the podcast, but you have had multiple projects over the years that I think have, you know, distinct sounds. I mean, I mentioned one already, Quality Strangers.
Thank God that you think that they're distinct.
Well, no, I mean, dude, well, okay, here's what I mean. I don't think... I can't imagine Make Sure making a song like Turkey Vulture, and then you know what I'm saying? Well, because like, if I'm not mistaken, I think I remember an early, when you release your Summerooms, when you released that first like album mixtape, Summerooms, the first one, in 2014. I think I remember the description that you had online or you wanted it to sound like it was like a beat up cassette tape that someone found on the side of the road.
Yeah.
And so so it's like kind of lo-fi, a little bit like you're not exactly sure how to pin this cassette down.
I'll tell you a quick story behind why, like, where that idea came from. Yeah. I remember it was either a cassette or like a burned CD or something, but me and Jackson Gafford were like driving home or walking home from school one day or something, and like we found something on the side of the road, and it was like it didn't have, like, you could tell that it was like there was music on it, but it didn't have anything. You couldn't tell what it was because it wasn't labeled. And then we just had this hypothetical conversation. We were like, what if this is the greatest album ever made? And, you know, but we just found it. We happened upon it. And so then I was kind of thinking like, okay, well, what if it's, you know, all these expectations of what is this thing? What would it sound like? I mean, it's been laying on the side of the road, so it's probably going to be kind of beat up or warped or something. And then I think I remember like I tried it out later, and it was like Miley Cyrus or something.
You always wanted to be more profound than it.
Yeah, but the idea was like, okay, well, what is this? So like the first Summerooms, I had this like, I think everybody was listening to like Mac DeMarco and Real Estate and stuff back then. So there was obviously some of that.
That's exactly that's not what the whole album sounded like at all, but like that's the time period I take myself back to. He was the most popular indie artist around. You know?
Yeah. So some of that definitely bled into it, but the idea being, it's like it's this summery, weird and warbly kind of thing.
Well, I guess to me, I bring that one up because it's like Summerooms to me is distinct from the others because it is the more experimental one. It's like kind of the one that you can play around with a little bit more. Make Sure is your newest band and project, right?
Yes, yeah. And probably I'd call it the main one. And I am trying to like lean into more like making it weirder, you know, and like doing that and more progressively as I go on with Make Sure. I think, I don't know if this is the definitive end of, you know, Summerooms or whatever, but it's just like, I don't know if I don't really have a desire to return to it right now. So like, but I may just sort of like, well, why can't I just be crazy with Make Sure and do whatever I want? But yeah, it's a lot of times it's just a point of, that's like a comical topic that it's like, oh, he's another band name. Okay, he's got like 5 of them now, but you know, it's fun to play around with though.
But I think I appreciate that because I don't know. I think it just shows an awareness that you're not trying to make the same. I think what it shows to me is that like it's almost like you telling people like, don't try to judge this album that I'm putting out against this other stuff, because that, and there's some artists who kind of keep the same name over the years, and I understand that too, but then people might criticize them for like, the music doesn't sound the same anymore, but you're like, well, I'm creating a new project for this. I love the idea. I think it makes it not so married to like whatever people you actually create something with too, because you might have a few people in your life for like 3 or 4 years, but then like college was a good example. You know, there's only a bunch of people you live around, but then afterwards they move away, and then you're like, well, it's a good thing we didn't get too tied up together in a band, or you know, like something that I've kind of noticed about you over the years is that most of your music projects are not that they're not collaborative, but it seems like a lot of times it's, you know, you're like the main kind of person that's like writing and recording the music, and then whenever you play live shows or like go on a tour or something, you'll get other people involved, obviously, because you have to. But then you also play shows where it's just you acoustically, right? Yeah. And I think there's give and take to both. Sometimes you know, if you play with a band, it's asking a lot. It's always asking a lot for someone to like come in and, you know, hey, play on my song, and I have so many sweet friends that are just good sports about all that. But like sometimes, like Hunter Jackson, he always teases me, and he's like, dude, your kick drum parts, they're like never consistent. They're just these confusing things. But
but he has a blast though, and it's fun playing with guys like him. And so, but sometimes you got to practice and get everything. It takes a lot of effort and work to kind of get the train rolling with a group, a band. Whereas like the acoustic show, it might not be as exciting as playing with a band, but it does take like less time to get ready for that because I can just sort of practice. Okay, here's how I play the song, and I don't have to worry about teaching anybody else like what's going on. So there's positives and negatives to both, I guess. But playing live, that's like I always feel like I can improve with that one. It's fun, but it's like they're always like, oh, I could have done this better, or whatever. But
well, I mean, that's the hard thing about live shows to me is you don't always have control over everything. When you're recording music, you have, you can manipulate it a million ways before anyone hears it out in the public. But you might play a show somewhere where you have everything together, but the guy running the soundboard doesn't know what they're doing, or it's not that you necessarily want to blame someone else, but it could be that everyone is doing their best, but like the room just doesn't sound good, or
I've been in situations where it's just that. It's exactly that. It's like the room just stinks. It's like a tin can, and like, but the engineer is like the sweetest, most enthusiastic, like, I'm so happy to be here. I love your music, that kind of thing. And it's like, too bad this room is just garbage. But, and that's just, or like we played a place in, I'm blanking on what the name was. It's like this punk rock venue that Nirvana played in back in, way back.
Wait, is it in Athens?
It's in North Carolina.
Okay.
I wish I could remember the name. But anyway, I mean, there's like stickers everywhere, and it was a cool looking place, but like no AC.
Yeah.
In true punk rock fashion, everybody's sweating their butts off. And,
well, in most places that have been around long enough to have someone like Nirvana play there, it's like, that's been around for a while, actually.
Yeah, the AC broke 15 years ago. Just rolled with it.
What you're talking about, though, reminds me of when we lived at Shady Glenn, because just like the shows that we would have shows there all the time, and where we would, play, practice all the time.
Yeah.
And it was fun. But I'm sure if we went back and like actually, listened, we'd be like, this sounds awful. Like just in the room because it was people packed into like a tiny apartment. And, if you're in the back of the room, you don't even really hear anything except like the high pitched like cymbal kind of cutting through everything. So, But I mean, you remember those days like...
they were fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was just... Sometimes those shows were more fun to me than like playing at like a real...
I love house shows.
Yeah.
I'll stand by it. I mean, they're just so... they're just homey, It's like you're in a house. I always feel like less nervous to like put on this... immaculate performance. Because it's like, well, if I mess up, I can just, make a silly comment and then just keep going or whatever. And like, it's more inviting. And like, especially when somebody's like sitting crisscross just on the ground watching you, it's like, okay, we're just hanging out. Like, this is not don't take this too seriously. Like, enjoy it and do your best and, have fun. But like, it's okay if it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Because we're just hanging out at someone's house. But also, playing a rock show. That one's, I always feel like that one's more tricky, like doing a rock show at a house, because you have to be sure the neighbors are cool with it.
Something that I ran into, you have to be sure that the floors of the house can withstand people kind of jumping. And because I've been at house shows before where it's like the floor feels like it's going to cave in. Yeah. People are bouncing and...
There was one where I think Dogwood Lung was playing... I was want to make sure it was like first shows ever, I think. It's like Austin Arias and some other guys were playing with me, but we were playing at the house where all the Dogwood Lung people lived.
Oh yeah.
Time. And like
good times, yeah.
And like I remember the people were jumping and at something, and then like somebody came in and was like, stop jumping, it's like, this thing's gonna break.
No, for real. I remember being there a few times, and when you're playing drums, you can feel it too, because like your whole drum set is like shaking.
Yeah.
Have you ever played on a really crappy stage that has like no weight or grounding to it. And like I played on one, me and Alex Wilkerson and Reed, when we were in Wilk together, we played a show at this place in Montgomery that was not a real venue, but they were, thought they were one.
Yeah.
It's the kind of place where literally people had coolers of beer like that they brought in themselves. And where I was like, I don't think this is legit, but they were like, well, we don't have a liquor license. So but anyway,
it's BYOB by necessity.
yeah. But I got up there and like just the entire time, like my drum set was literally like my cymbals were shaking like this. And it makes it really hard to play as a drummer when you're not sure where to actually hit everything.
Like you're on a waterbed or something.
Yeah. So I mean, like I love like a really good, well-made house venue or something.
There was a place that we played on, and I think it was still in North Carolina, but it was this guy. He lived kind of out in the woods, but or up in the mountains, but it was just called The Den, But he had converted his garage into this like, I mean, it was still a garage, but like he had like a soundboard in there, all these really cool lights and things, and like we have pictures from that, and it looks really cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just kind of like watch from outside the garage. I mean, you could kind of come in the garage a little bit, but like you could hang out outside, you could sort of walk around, but that was fun, and it had that cool feeling. It was like, yeah, this is someone's house, but we're all here rocking out. But it also helped that it was middle of the nowhere woods too.
Yeah. Just because I think it's fun, since we were talking about Shady Glenn and everything, I want to maybe just kind of like reminisce a little bit, because we had some good times there. But I think when I say good times, it's one of those things where like you look back and you're like, I feel so much better about my life now because I don't have these problems. I mean, like I got fleas, which that was the crazy part.
You did.
You did not get them. Our bedrooms are right next to each other, and I don't know how that happened. I did not have any animals or a cat there, and I got fleas, and it was like one of the worst things I've ever had to deal with. Because like for months after that, I was waking up in the middle of the night with like phantom flea feeling on my legs and scratching. And my legs were all scabby. It was awful. But then also the rat.
The rat.
I mean, that was kind of
the rat,
which probably is where the fleas came from. But
maybe so. Yeah.
No, the rat bugged me because you and I don't know how we started to figure it out. I think it was like our wallpaper.
The wallpaper, and we had a half bath downstairs.
Yeah.
And then the wallpaper was like every so often, like a little more of the wallpaper would be like munched away, and then I think you eventually were like, all right, let's talk about this. Like, what is happening? What's going on in here? Yeah. And then I was like, well, I don't know, I've never seen it. And you're like, I think we have a rat.
And I confirmed the rat one night when I was out until like 10 p.m. or something, and I came home and I heard some rustling in the bathroom, and I was like, Josh, and you weren't in there. And
is that you?
Mr. Marble? Yeah, but
Mr. Marble seems harmless.
No, but and I heard some rustling, and I opened the door, and like nothing happened for like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I saw the rat scurry from behind the toilet. Yeah, like so fast and going through the hole in the wall. And I have never like sounded just like a little boy, just like, just like, oh my goodness, it was crazy. But and then I remember you and I bought some like rat poison.
We bought like some poison, and then like one of those like sticky trap things. Yeah. And I don't know how much gruesome we want to get on here, but we took care of the issue. I had to. I mean, I'll tell you what,
you can tell the whole story if you want. Well, like, I think it's fun. But,
oh gosh.
Well, I mean, what I remember was that we heard one night like it squealing. We were like, oh, I think it's stuck.
Yeah.
But we're like, we're not going to do anything. Let's go let it die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was poison in the middle of this trap. And I don't know how this happened, but the rat over the course of the night did not die, even though it had eaten a big chunk of poison and was just like laying on this thing and had pulled its fur off. It was pretty gruesome and awful.
Yeah.
But
I think I lured it. I think one of the details that I lured it with I had like old like Cinnamon Toast Crunch or something.
I don't remember this.
I think I sprinkled it on Yeah, it was some cereal.
That can't be good for the rat's palate. I mean,
No.
it was probably messing them up.
Yeah, well, anyway, also the poison, but
Yeah. But no, I just remember that what was hilarious to me about it, because I just think of you as such a kind, gentle guy, but I mean, not that this is not the merciful thing to do, but you put him into like a plastic bin and then you took him out the dumpster.
I put him in a trash bag.
Yeah.
And he was still, so he had eaten the poison like 12 hours ago.
Yeah.
Had eaten and ingested this poison, this poor little rat. And I'll set the record straight. You know, if we were able to do this, if we were able to capture him and set him free in the wild,
same.
we would have done it.
I don't care about killing rats.
Now that we've gotten that out of the way.
Yeah.
So he had eaten the poison, like I'm sure like at night or something, and then like the following day, he was still in there, just like, oh, you know, just like not dead yet. And I'm like, oh, this poor guy.
Creepy.
You could see that he'd eaten some of it, and so I like got a trash bag and some gloves and like put him in there, and then he's like in the bag, you know, he's just like, you know, trying to, and it's like, oh, this little guy. And anyway, so I took him to the dumpster and I put him out of his misery.
With a broken beer bottle, I believe.
It wasn't broken. It was still solid.
Okay, well, either way, I mean, it's not that that's not, you know, the merciful thing to do. Also,
my mom's going to watch this and be like, Joshua! That poor little rat.
Well, that's why it was so funny, was that I was expecting you to be like, yeah, I just threw him in the dumpster, but then you were like, well, I found a beer bottle next to the dumpster and put him out of his misery, and I was like, that's kind of hard ass, Josh. I didn't know you had it in you. All right.
Yeah, man. Well, it's like he was.
No, I know.
Imagine
No, I.
That's what I was like. I can either. It's like It's almost like I had to do it. You know.
I mean, honestly, it's not like we had a bunch of ridiculous. We were pretty tame dudes, you know, especially compared to some people at Shady Glenn. So it's like the rat story is pretty much the best story I think we have, other than you like finding me on the floor once or twice, you know, like those are fun times.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But I remember we had the group text that we had we had like a group me for all the Shady Glenn people in it. When I first got there, it was Shady Glenn, the next generation.
Yeah.
And then like the next year came around. And so somebody changed it to Shady Glenn Deep Space Nine. But anyway, but I remember we were texting the group about the rat, and like Matt Revel said something like, it's like, you guys are what a waste. Have you ever seen Ratatouille? Like, think of the potential you've missed.
No, one of my favorite things that happened when we lived in that apartment was the day that Seth threw a banana through my window. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, and he made a video, I think it's still on his Instagram somewhere, where he's like, he acted like he was on Jackass or something. He was like, hey, I'm Seth Brown, this is Jackass. And he threw a banana peel through my window. And I remember being downstairs. I don't think you were home. I was like downstairs and I heard a thud and I was like, what was that? But I was like, I don't know. And I walked outside and they were all like, did you see it? And I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, I just loved living somewhere where you could walk, you know, to the front of Shady and find someone playing music, and then
somebody,
you could go, just someone to hang out with.
Somebody was going to be there, either working on music or just hanging out. I mean, the porch, I missed that. Just like Seth and Matt and all them had their.
Yep.
It was like every night you could, if you just wanted to hang out on the porch, you could. And
yeah, it was pretty disappointing there near the end when we were still living at Shady and all those people had left and we were like the last stragglers, you know, holding on. And, you know, they started like redoing the carpets at Matt's old apartment. I was like, no, those have blood stains, but like fake blood from Halloween, like little caplets, you know, someone just spit it out at the Halloween party.
The memories.
Yeah. And I'm sure someone's like, this is a ratty old carpet. What are you talking about? But, I mean, but yeah, I look back fondly at those times because I've never been so like surrounded by talented people, just like, in my actual vicinity and just kind of like in my social life. Like we were constantly, you know, jamming or even if you were just sitting around like on the porch or something, like riffing, like you and Seth would always do these like fun, little like comedy kind of like sketches.
Yeah.
My favorite was the one that y'all would do, which I think is hilarious, but some people might not really love it because it can go on pretty long. But it's the one where y'all just act like old men who are like sitting outside of like a gas station in the South, and you're like, oh, I'll take I-95 all the way down to 22, and then I'll cut it about 5 miles in, and then basically you're just making up all these numbers and names, and then someone will like chime in, and they're like, wait, I thought they were doing construction on 22. It sounds like a real conversation that you would hear somewhere in the South.
The whole thing's just BS.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
I mean, it seems like it could be an SNL sketch. Like they, have you ever seen the one where
the Californians? Is that
no, I was talking about Bill Brasky. Where
okay.
It's basically like they all these drunk guys show up to a funeral and they're like, oh, our friend Bill Brasky, he was the best, and they all tell these absurd stories about him. Like, but the one I always remember is Will Ferrell says, his poop is considered currency in Argentina. Like they say things like that about him, where it's just like that's just not true. But anyway, I love stuff like that where it's just it is just BS. But anyway, I think maybe now, since we're in a silly mood, is a good time where I have like a this or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think you probably saw the one I did with Walker, or you might not have. Even if you didn't, you're familiar with the general idea.
Of course.
I'll give you two things. You got to tell me, and we're not gonna put a timer on it or anything. It's just kind of a fun game. And so, like I said, these may or may not be related to each other. Okay. They might be in the exact same category. So either way.
Okay. This
or that for Josh Jackson. Let's go. Space Invaders or Pac-Man?
Space Invaders.
All right. Queso or guacamole?
I'm allergic to avocados, so queso all day.
I could have sworn I've seen you eat some guacamole before.
Well, I got sick afterward, I'm sure. It would have been to my own detriment.
John Wayne or Wayne Brady?
I have to say John Wayne because my dad's like a diehard.
The Grateful Dead or the Allman Brothers?
I'm gonna go Allman Brothers.
Why?
They have that song Little Martha. It's like one of my favorite instrumental songs ever, and
they have some good instrumentals.
Yeah.
Snack packs or Lunchables?
Lunchables all day long.
Mumble rap or cock rock? You know what both of those things are, right?
I don't know if I know what cock rock.
Creed, Nickelback, Disturbed, or not Disturbed, but like Stained. Bands like there used to be an infomercial called Monsters of Rock, or Monster Rock. And that was
I'll go with that. Yeah.
Wes Anderson or Anderson .Paak?
Wes Anderson, I guess.
Saturday Night Live or Mad TV?
Mad TV.
I love Mad TV.
Yeah.
Some good stuff. Nirvana or Smashing Pumpkins?
Smashing Pumpkins.
See, I feel like I figured that answer out earlier. Yeah. Bernie Mac or Mac DeMarco?
Bernie Mac.
Nice.
I like Mac DeMarco, okay.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah. But I think it's just fun sometimes to have like you have to choose between two things that you're like, I don't know.
Right.
But it only makes sense if you understand the references, though, because like I made a couple references with Walker and I was like, oh man, he didn't know this one. Dang it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just a fun way to get to know you a little bit better. Who's the real Josh Jackson? Just kidding. Let's go kind of into a little bit more of like what I traditionally do. I didn't really, do a formal, I guess, introduction on camera with you, but we have Josh Jackson in the studio. He is a good friend from growing up. We've known each other since I think I actually officially met you in high school.
I was in 9th grade or 10th grade or something like that.
But I feel like there's no way we did not see each other, run into each other. Did you go to Opelika Middle School?
Yeah, well, the thing was, me and your brother, Oliver, were good, we were buddies, and
he sucks.
Yeah. He's the worst. No, but I just knew you as Oliver's brother for a while.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
But I didn't really know anything about you, and then finally. But I was friends with him for a few years, and then I finally got around to meeting you.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I first met you. you were like, at least a year and a half younger than me. You were 2 school grades younger than me. I thought you were older than me.
Really?
Yeah. Like I remember you were one of those people. I don't know if you had facial hair back then, but that could have been it, because sometimes that does it for people. If you have a beard in high school, and I'm like, okay, well,
I don't think I really committed to the beard until sometime in college. But,
okay.
No, it's probably my mature demeanor that you.
Well, my point is, there's no way we didn't see each other at some, because I used to see Jackson around like in middle school. Me and him would walk the same route to get to school every day. But
we had a bunch of mutual friends. I mean, we were bound to meet up at some point. I remember the first day I met you. I think you were giving like Jackson a ride or something, and you drove this truck that had like the little like mini seat in the back.
Yep, little jump seats in the back.
I rode in that. I was like, this is something special. I've never done this before.
I once fit, like Seth, who has really long legs, in the front seat, and then 2 other people in the back. I don't know how that happened, but what I traditionally talk about with people at the beginning of each podcast is like where you're from originally, because a big focus in this podcast is I like to interview people from the South, because it's just kind of generally what I identify with is like what it means to kind of be like a musician or a creative or an artist in the southeastern United States, mainly like Alabama and Georgia. But kind of talk to me, tell the audience where you're from originally, where we're from, I guess, and then how you began playing music, like learning how to play music.
So I was born in Opelika, Alabama, as were you, and I grew up in a family that no one really played instruments, but we all liked to listen to music. So, but me and my siblings, I'm the youngest of 4, we were always like burning CDs, and like my older brother especially was like, every like paycheck or whatever for his job, he would go to the store Hastings, which is closed now. But
Hastings,
and he would always just like buy new CDs and find new stuff. And he kind of like made a point to like educate me on like what was good, and I'm glad he did, because like to him what was good would be like The Cure or Oasis and like stuff like that. And like, say what you will about Oasis, but like they were like a pivotal band for me growing up. Like I knew all their albums.
He could have pointed you towards like Insane Clown Posse or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But but it was a lot of like 90s rock and some 80s stuff and just so anyway, and like Radiohead as well, Soundgarden, those kind of things. Yeah. And so I just got like really into that sort of music, especially in like my teenage years, and like really gravitated towards that kind of stuff. And but I think my brother actually, I'll give him credit, I think he picked up guitar in like high school or college or something. Yeah, he didn't end up sticking with it, but we had one around the house. And I remember like one day like sneaking into his room when he wasn't home and just like strumming the strings. I didn't know what in the world I was doing. I was like a little kid, but just being fascinated that I was like, I can strum this and like sound comes out. Mm-hmm. That's really cool. And so I'd had this fascination with it. But I think really I just wanted to get into music because of, I just wanted to make records. That was the thing that I wanted to do. I didn't, like playing live is fun, but it wasn't really what I was like imagining. I wanted to do the, like I just love the experience of listening to an album and like the story you could tell with that. And, so I was like, I just want to learn how to create something like this. And eventually when I got to be like 15 or 16, that was when I started delving into that, for the first time. Mm-hmm.
So did you have any like formal instruction though? Like in terms of, I thought you were in band or percussion a little bit, weren't you?
I was in percussion in middle school. I guess that was fine. I didn't ever stick with the band. But I think when I was 11, I got my first guitar. And, I got like some guitar lessons and stuff. But then eventually, I just wasn't like, at first I wasn't too keen on it because it makes your fingers hurt. But then eventually started getting really into listening to records like pretty seriously and just admiring that art form. And so I was like, well, I want to learn how to play songs. I want to learn how to play these songs that I like, whether it's like, Smashing Pumpkins or Radiohead or something, and just figuring out, what are the chords, or even like, Coldplay or something. I'm like, oh, he tunes the high E to an E flat, and then you get this cool open chord. That stuff was like just so fascinating to me. And so I was the kid who was, I don't know, I was always cruising on Ultimate Guitar or something and just looking up how to play certain songs and different tunings and stuff I could mess with.
I feel like I used to look at so many like guitar tab websites where I would try playing what they said was like correct for the song, and I was like, it's not right at all. Like,
dude. And what's funny is like I've had like some people ask like, I don't know, it's like hey, cool song, tabs, ? And I'm like at that point I'd rather just like make a video and just show you how to play it, because I'm like writing out like the
I don't know how anybody
dash
did that. That hurt. That's even harder to me than like writing actual music. Like because it is a lot of I don't know. That's like a weird way of like transposing something into a different language, and it's for your benefit really if you want to like look at a sheet of paper or a thing on your computer to play a song. It's for your benefit to just learn how to play chords or and like actually know what you're doing. But so it sounds like for you mostly your journey of like becoming a musician has kind of happened fairly, I guess, organically, in terms of like it's more based around what you wanted to make. Like for me, as like in opposition to that, like I felt like for such a long time I was taught these things about music that I eventually was like, I just don't really know how this is going to be relevant to like the music I actually want to make. Because by the time I was in like high school, I was like, why would I actually, unless I was getting paid a lot, like why would I want to be in a symphony as a percussionist or something like that? I would understand it if you played a stringed instrument or something. There's more prestige to that. But like if as a drummer or as like a guitar player or something like that, like they're like that kind of formal instruction is not always the best way for someone to learn. Yeah,
it wasn't what I was interested in. Like, I'm not knocking it. I mean, if that's what like if someone's really passionate about, like I have a cousin who's like this excellent trumpeter. And I'm like, that's great. Like, keep that up, But like, I just wanted to write songs that were really emotional and like, and make like weird noises and stuff. And that was just what I wanted. Cause I wanted to make sounds, I wanted to make songs like the songs that I loved to listen to. And, the best way I could figure that out was like, okay, guitar is such an immediate instrument. If I wanted to learn how to play, this certain, I can't think of an example, but it's just like you can quit if you have the right effects pedals or if you have the right guitar, and you know how to play the part exactly. It's like pretty quickly you're kind of in the ballpark of what's on the record. And so that's just that's just fun, because then you get to like mix and match and combine. It's like, oh, it sounds like The Cure, but there's this like My Bloody Valentine weird thing happening, and you get to put them together and and just that's what I'm always thinking of, is just like kind of throwing stuff in a blender and seeing what happens.
Well, and like I feel like your music, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I feel like it does have a good range to it. Like your most recent project, Ninjutsu. Remind me the whole name of the album. Is that?
It's just.
Oh, it's just. But the song is that you.
Ninjutsu.
Okay, to make sure I got that right. But what is that? What is Ninjutsu? I'm not sure that.
Ninjutsu is a. Number one, it's just a really cool looking word. Secondly, it's like this form of martial arts that originated from Japan. It's just like the fighting style of ninjas, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
But sort of the like, I don't know. A lot of the song titles on there are kind of like tongue in cheek or a little silly. Like, is that you ninjutsu? I always just thought that was a funny title because it's like, what does that even mean? But it has this alliteration. But I don't know, the title itself, I mean, lyrically, a lot of the album kind of deals with the stages of grief and how, like, that's sort of like a learned skill to, like, be able to process through emotions, which is not something I've not always been good at, but I've had to learn how to process my emotions and be emotionally, like, aware of what I'm feeling, you know, and just how to navigate that stuff. But, like, so that was, like, naming it ninjutsu to me was sort of like a way of, it's like, it was kind of silly, you know, it's not the same thing, like learning a fighting style, but like, you know, you are learning something new nevertheless.
Yeah.
And so that was just kind of maybe a different way of looking at it, you know.
Well, similar to a form of martial arts, dealing with grief is something that you don't want to have to do.
Right.
You don't want to pull out your moves.
Yeah.
But you have to develop them because otherwise, when the going gets tough, it's gonna be difficult for you.
Yeah. You got to know what are you going to hold on to, how are you going to process this. So. Well,
I mean, similarly, or not similarly, but you were saying that some of the song titles have like it's like they're silly, or, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I love the fact that Japanese bonus track is in like the middle. It's not really like it would have fooled me a little bit if it was like literally at the end of the album. I'd be like, okay, well, that makes. But I think I remember you saying something about how you kind of explained a little bit about that in Japan they often get like CD versions that have extra.
Yeah, I think so. I think the way it goes was like, in Japan, buying a CD, I think, is like more expensive than most places. But to incentivize buying the CD in Japan, they would put like an extra song on it.
Yeah, that's right.
So there you go.
Nice. That's one of my favorites on there. I really like, for some reason, the line from what you would call the chorus. When I swing myself, I never miss.
Yeah.
That's one of those that kind of sticks in your head a little bit. But I think the album, like I was saying a second ago, does a really good job in terms of just like the sounds that you use, kind of floating between some of your stuff that you've done before that is more like acoustic, and then some stuff that is like a bit more, I'm trying to think of how to put it, has more going on instrumentally. Like there's more layers happening at the same time.
There's a lot of crazy noises and stuff. Yeah. And that was intentional. I mean, I wanted it to be a weird record, you know, like still have cohesive songs in there, but like upon hearing them, they're like, there's a lot of, is that like R2D2 or something? You know, like, what is that? You know, so, but that stuff, honestly, like once you've already kind of got like a song there, and then just like throwing in extra weird stuff is so much fun. Yeah.
Well, I had a point that I was going to make about that. Give me a second.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about a little bit that Jackson did the album art for you. What kind of, I mean, and he pretty much exclusively does, or a lot of what he does is like collage.
Collaging, yeah.
Yeah. Do you, like, I guess he did a lot of that from like, because he has like National Geographic magazines, doesn't he?
Yeah, Nat Geo, and then I'm sure he could tell you what else he's pulling from. Yeah. But he just has like this quirky sensibility about how to put things together. Like it's like I can always kind of tell when it was a Jackson like piece.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. Even if it is like because it's kind of funny or there's like it's like, oh, of course he would put the, you know, people carrying a dragon like just in the middle of it and I don't know, like no context, that sort of thing. And like just like fun stuff like that. And I think I like, he made that before the record was even done. I think I just sent him the first song and I was like, okay, just whatever you're hearing in your head, just come up with something. And I'm sure we only went back and forth like once or twice before it was like, okay, that's it, that's the thing. So yeah, he's got what I love so much about his music and the way he goes about it is that it's so visual. Like I know he thinks so visually about his music, and that was definitely something I wanted to do with this record. That I wanted the songs to have a sort of a visual palette, and the way that they sound. That it's like if you closed your eyes, you would imagine these. I don't know if they're coherent images or anything, but at least some kind of visuals happening. That was what I wanted anyway. But what I would hope for. But I thought Jackson was a great guy to ask to do that, because he did his artwork for Arboretum, the Captain Kudzu album, and I thought, I'm like, well, that fits perfectly, and it just kind of it gels so well together. Even though the artwork is so abstract, and strange, but he pulls it together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, I really love the fact that you keep things close. That you're like using, like we've known each other since like middle school, high school. It's just nice that you're still. And actually, that's something I had kind of transitioning into a new part of the conversation. Excuse me. Ninjutsu was Make Sure's first project released under a record label, right? Tooth and Nail Records, right? I think of you as such a DIY person, because that's just how, even apart from your own music over the years, you've always been able to help people like do whatever they need to do, even when they have no money or no resources. Really, you've been able to figure out how to make it work. So what's the difference for you between stuff you've done in the past and then where you either recorded it yourself, or if you did record it in a studio, what's the difference between that and being on a record label, like from your experience so far?
I think probably the biggest thing is, with a label, you've got this entity that's like vouching for you, and I think that's probably the most helpful aspect. Is like, and they're really kind to be, whoever they get, they kind of are just like, okay, you do your thing, and we'll just promote what you're doing. Now I feel like, if I turn in like a polka record, they'd probably be like, okay, I don't know if we can, but they're kind of there to just be like, all right, so this is the record, and we're gonna like tell people that, hey, look at this, listen to this, and that's like really helpful, especially for a DIY guy like me. That it was always just like me going on Instagram and like, hey, well, here's another one. Yeah. Check it out. And, and there's something to that. If that's like what someone's doing right now, I'm like, keep going. Like, don't quit just because it's not like taken off, you have like millions of listeners, like that doesn't mean like, if you still have a drive to do it, if you still have a vision and a desire to do it, then like keep going. Cause that was like, because I was ready to release Ninjutsu, not like just independently.
I think I remember that, because I think maybe you and I, like you had showed it to me, and then I think maybe once the label came around, it got a little bit delayed, because it was like, well, they want to make sure to put press out about it.
Right. Yeah. And like, that's another thing that's really helpful is they promoted it's like singles beforehand, and they kind of get like, there is an art form to like getting the hype train going. And that was something that like, I don't really know how best to do that. I think I know maybe a little bit more about it now, just because I've been a part of an album cycle with the label, but there is like tactfulness to it, and like the music will speak for itself, hopefully, but like there is a way that it's like, okay, well, we have to play the game in order to get people to even like know about this. Yeah. And that's just like, you surely can't get around it. Like I think I'm such like I just want to just drop the album on everybody, and then like, here it is, but that, I think you sacrifice like a lot of listeners by doing something like that. So I don't know, there's all this tactfulness to it, and I'm not going to pretend like I understand everything.
I mean, and that's always been a thing in the music industry, but like we live in a really kind of annoying time right now where it's great that we have all these ways like Bandcamp or social media to put your music out there and not really have to have like other entities involved with it. Like you can get your stuff out there, but that means that it's a ridiculously saturated, the online world feels like, 5 or 10 years ago, you could go on Instagram and just look up like local bands and then, kind of like it wasn't such a saturated world. Now it's like, there's going to be 1 million accounts on there and half of them aren't even a band anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Like what band names are taken and what aren't. I mean,
that's such a frustrating thing. I mean, because like you think of a great band name and it's already been done. But
yeah, I'll just put this out in the internet because there is I think we've talked about this. They're like, make sure I came out with my first EP in like 2017.
Yeah.
Then like 2 or 3 years later, this like, I'm convinced like AI jazz thing, like it's these 2 songs. I don't know if they're on Spotify. I think they're on Apple Music, but the band name is Make Sure. And it's like the pictures like of like the Golden Gate Bridge. And like, it's this elevator jazz, like these 2 songs, and there's nothing else from this supposed band. Like I'm like, I've told this to people and like some people are like, I think someone's pranking you, Josh. That's out there. But I'm like, so anyway, like if you know this person, like please tell me who they are.
Something I have seen.
It's hilarious that is a thing.
This doesn't make quite as much sense. No offense, because you're not like huge on the internet or anything. But I've heard of bands like even if band has like, I don't know, 10,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, they will like somebody to get more views on their page or whatever will like tag and say that artist was featured, or sometimes they will change their band name to that. Literally just to, or actually I've seen it where it's like...
I have seen that a lot. There's...
there's some way to add your own song to a non-collaboration playlist, and then all of a sudden it's like people are like, oh, this is on the playlist that you said to listen to. It's like, but it's not. And anyway, sorry.
Wow. No, yeah, I have seen that. That happened to... what was the band? It was like Whitney, And like, I think a couple of times, like, it's like, oh, new song from Whitney. And then like, it's this like very vulgar, like gangster rap song. And it's
nice.
I feel like the like people, secretly Canadian or whatever, just like, hey, no, like get it down. But
something that I've had happen a lot, that this is kind of annoying. It's not, why I say annoying, but the only like famous person with my name is a British film director who makes like horror movies. And I guess he's pretty well respected in some regard because he doesn't have any social media. But his name's Peter Strickland. He's like a British guy. I have been tagged at least 10 times, literally over the past few years. From like, there will be like a film festival in France. And then they're like, it will be showing this new film and then they see that it's like Peter Strickland, he does video stuff, and they're like, that's him. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you just tag the first...
Maybe he's like, he doesn't show his face, so no one really knows.
I mean, I found his face online. I know what he has his picture up there. So that's what's confusing is I'm like, anyway...
There's no way he's as good looking as you are.
Well, he's got less hair, but I'm on my way there, So, but it's just funny when that happens, though. And... like we said, most band names have been taken. So unless you have something ridiculously unique, like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, that's something that has to be that unique. Otherwise, it's like it's probably been done before.
Yeah.
Kind of getting near the end of the conversation. We just talked a lot about Ninjutsu, which is your most recent project out. Yeah. But is there anything that you have out or have coming up that you wanted to promote?
I don't know when it's going to come out. There's a record I'm working on, and I'm looking forward to releasing it. But I don't know how long it's going to take. I mean, we're trying to do everything like in studio. And Ninjutsu was kind of half and half home recorded, half studio. But this one we're trying to like make it as pristine as possible. But it's just it takes time, and But I guess in the meantime, just check out, make sure if you haven't heard of it before, and follow me on Insta. I think it's makesure.music.
And since you might not, I'll just list these off. The other bands that Josh has been involved with over the years that you should check out. Fiery Crash was your group. You made music under that name for a while.
Yeah, I named that after a Andrew Bird song. I was like 16.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a few records.
But Fiery Crash is great. Quality Strangers, if you want to really take it back. And then Summerooms has a couple albums out from over the years.
Yeah.
Make Sure is the most recent. I feel like I'm missing something. I mean, you dip in and out of bands here and there.
I'll help out with stuff. I mean, it wasn't too long ago. I did a song with Isaac McCarty. And that was something I did. And I'm trying to. I played drums for this band called Decoy Snail. They just put out a record.
Nice. From around here, I guess?
Yeah, well, they were from Auburn.
Yeah.
Their term, they say, is like, we're the best. It's the best rock band in Eagles Landing. Like their apartment complex or whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar with Eagles Landing. That's just funny but like, think about it. We would say best band in Shady Glenn. That would be a ridiculous claim though, because people would be like, who they think they are.
Yeah. Oh man.
But anyway, check out Josh's music, follow him online. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at some point we'll have you back on when you have like a new album out to promote, that kind of thing.
Yeah, man.
But dude, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's good to reconnect with an old buddy.
Of course, dude. Thanks.